I gave all the money from my mother to my wife. Amber is building an empire with it. My son Daniel crossed his arms and declared this proudly to everyone at my Thanksgiving dinner. The room fell silent. My sister Grace, who had just arrived from Seattle, looked around my stripped-bare Portland home. No furniture, no food on the table, just me, weighing barely 94 pounds, too weak to stand. Grace slowly set down her coat, and what she did next would change everything. But to understand how we got to this moment, I need to tell you my story from the beginning. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey. And if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. My name is Margaret Chen, but everyone calls me Maggie. I am 67 years old, a second-generation Chinese American who worked as an accountant for 40 years at a prestigious financial firm in Portland, Oregon. I retired 3 years ago with a pension of $7,500 a month, enough to live comfortably in the craftsman house my late husband David and I bought 30 years ago in the Hawthorne district. David was a software engineer, brilliant and kind. We married when I was 25 and spent 3 decades building a life together in this house. We painted every room ourselves, refinished the floors, planted the cherry tree in the backyard. It took us 8 years before our son Daniel was born. 8 years of hoping before we finally held our miracle baby. Daniel was everything to us, a bright, affectionate child who would wait up after my late work shifts just to hug me goodnight. "You work so hard, Mama," he would say. "When I grow up, I'm going to take care of you." Those words stayed with me through everything that came after. 9 years ago, David was diagnosed with cancer. 6 brutal months of treatment emptied our savings, but could not save him. At the funeral, Daniel held me as I sobbed, promising I would never be alone. After David died, I threw myself into work, taking extra hours, saving every penny, not for myself, but for Daniel. I wanted him to have every opportunity to chase his dreams without financial worry. Daniel studied business and computer science at Stanford University. I was so proud at his graduation, attending in my work clothes after driving straight from an overnight shift. After college, he moved to San Francisco and dove into the startup world, full of ideas and passion. He called every week with updates about his ventures, his vision for the future. 3 years ago, Daniel met Amber Rodriguez at a networking event in San Francisco. She was a lifestyle influencer with 200,000 Instagram followers, always perfectly styled, always posting about wellness and luxury. When Daniel introduced us, I noticed something calculating behind her perfect smile, a coldness I could not quite place. She wore an ivory designer dress and spoke with practiced charm. "Mrs. Chen, you have such a beautiful home. Daniel has told me so much about you." I tried to be kind, to give her the benefit of the doubt. After all, she was the woman who had won my son's heart. They married 6 months later in an expensive ceremony in Napa Valley. I contributed $30,000 from my retirement savings because Amber claimed her family could not afford to help. Her parents were dead, she said. She was alone in the world. I felt sorry for her then, thought perhaps her coldness was armor against loneliness. I should have trusted my instincts. For the first year, everything seemed fine. Daniel and Amber visited occasionally, always looking successful and happy. Amber's Instagram showed a glamorous life of designer clothes, fancy restaurants, and exotic travel. Daniel seemed proud of his influencer wife. Then, 18 months ago, everything changed. Daniel's tech startup hit financial trouble. Investors pulled out. Revenue dried up. One evening, Daniel and Amber arrived at my door looking defeated. "Mom, we need to talk," Daniel said, his voice heavy. The startup needed more runway, he explained. They had expenses, debts. Could they move in temporarily, just until they got back on their feet? Just 6 months, Mom, Daniel assured me as they brought in their suitcases 2 weeks later, until we stabilize. I was happy to help. What good was my pension if not to support my son during difficult times? My house had 3 bedrooms. There was plenty of space. I gave them the master bedroom, the one David and I had shared, and moved into the smallest room. You two are young and need the space, I told them. Amber thanked me with a kiss on the cheek, but the gesture felt hollow, mechanical, as if she were performing for an invisible audience. The first few weeks seemed manageable. Daniel spent his days sending out resumes and attending virtual interviews. Amber worked on her Instagram content, setting up ring lights in the living room, photographing her outfits against my walls. I gave Daniel money for gas, for interview clothes, for coffee while he waited. "Thanks, Mom," he would say, taking the bills. "I will pay you back every penny when I find work." But the interviews led nowhere. Daniel grew quieter, more withdrawn. Amber became the one who spoke for both of them. "Daniel is very stressed," she explained to me one afternoon. "The constant rejection is affecting him emotionally. He needs to feel like he can still provide for his family." Then she made a suggestion that seemed reasonable at the time. "Why don't you give Daniel your debit card? That way he can manage household expenses and feel useful while he looks for work. It would really help his confidence." I hesitated. It was my money, my pension earned from 40 years of hard work, but I looked at my son sitting on the folding chair with vacant eyes, and my heart broke. I wanted to help him regain his dignity. "All right," I said finally. "Daniel can handle the money while he is here." I gave him my card and explained my PIN. "Use what you need, son, for food, for your expenses, for whatever you need." Daniel hugged me tight, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a smile on his face. "Thank you, Mom. You don't know what this means to me." Amber smiled too, but her smile was different. There was a gleam in her eyes I did not understand then. Now I know it was the gleam of victory. The first month, everything seemed normal. Daniel bought groceries and paid the household bills on time. He even gave me $100 for personal expenses. "Here, Mom, buy yourself something nice," he said warmly. I felt relieved. My son was responsible. He was managing the money well. But then Amber began talking about investments. "Your money should be working for you, Maggie," she said, using financial terms I did not fully understand. "We are building generational wealth. This is about Daniel's future, about your future grandchildren." She spoke of her plan to become a mega influencer, how content creation was the future of business, how they needed capital investment to scale her brand. Soon, packages began arriving daily: professional photography equipment, ring lights, cameras, backdrops. "This is business investment, Mom," Daniel explained when I asked. "Amber needs the right tools to create quality content." A photographer was hired to shoot Amber's Instagram posts. They converted my spare bedroom into a studio space, moving out the furniture without asking. Amber's wardrobe exploded with designer clothes, boxes from Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, luxury boutiques I had never heard of. "I need to look the part for brand deals," she explained. "This is how influencer marketing works. You have to project success to attract partnerships." Daniel defended every purchase. "It is for her business. Mom, you have to spend money to make money." Meanwhile, our grocery shopping grew smaller. "We are doing plant-based now, Mom," Amber announced. "It is better for your health at your age. You don't need as much food." My portions shrank to half a cup of rice, some vegetables, maybe a piece of fruit. But I noticed Daniel and Amber ordered takeout almost every night. Pizza, burgers, Thai food. The smells filled the house while I ate my meager meals. Then my belongings started disappearing. The antique Chinese dishes my mother had brought from Hong Kong, beautiful porcelain with hand-painted flowers, vanished one day. "Those didn't match our aesthetic," Amber said when I asked. "I sold them on eBay, we needed the money for more important things." My heart sank, but I said nothing. The jade bracelet my grandmother had given me, a family heirloom passed down through generations, disappeared next. "Oh, that?" Amber said casually. "I thought it was costume jewelry. I sold it on Etsy. It only got $200 anyway." $200 for a piece of my family history that was priceless. I stopped going to the Chinese community center where I had volunteered for years. When friends called, Amber answered, "She is napping," she would say. "I will have her call you back." But she never gave me the messages. Slowly, I was being cut off from everyone I knew. One day, I tried to check my bank account online. The password had been changed. "Marcus," I called out, concerned. "I cannot get into my bank account." He came into the room with a calm expression. "Oh, that? I changed the password for security. Mom, there is a lot of fraud these days." He gave me a new password, but when I tried it later, it did not work either. "Just let me handle it." "Mom," he said, taking my phone from my hands. "You don't really understand these technology things. I will take care of everything." And just like that, I lost access to my own money, to my own life. The furniture disappeared next. The sofa David and I had saved for, the one we bought to celebrate our 20th anniversary, vanished one afternoon while I was resting. "We sold it," Amber said, not even looking up from her phone. "It was old and worn out. Besides, we needed the money for the co-working space." Co-working space? In my confusion, I asked what she meant. "Daniel rented a professional workspace at the seaport," she explained. $2,000 a month. He needs a proper environment to work on the startup. $2,000 a month from my pension for a space he barely used. The dining table went next. Then the antique lamps. Then the artwork David had created. Paintings he had made with his own hands during the happy years of our marriage. "They were just taking up space," Amber said. "I sold them on an art auction site. I wanted to scream that they were my memories, my history, but the words died in my throat. I was terrified that if I protested too much, they would leave, and I would be completely alone. My health began to fail. I was losing weight rapidly. My clothes hung off my body like sheets on a clothesline. 125 pounds became 115, then 105, then 98. I felt dizzy constantly. My hands shook even when I tried to hold them still. My blood pressure medication had run out weeks ago, and when I asked Daniel for money to refill it, he sighed with annoyance. "Doctors are too expensive. Mom, besides, you are a nurse. You can take care of yourself." I was not a nurse. I was an accountant, but I was too tired to correct him. One day, I tried to withdraw money from the ATM to buy my medication. The machine rejected the transaction. Insufficient funds. Impossible. It was the middle of the month. There should have been at least $4,000 in my account. I tried again. Same message. With trembling hands, I requested a printed balance. The number on the paper made my knees buckle. $43. $43 from a $7,500 monthly pension. I went home with the crumpled receipt and found Daniel in the backyard on his phone. When I showed him the paper, his expression changed from surprise to irritation. "Mom, you went to the bank without telling me? We talked about this. I manage the money so you don't have to worry." "But where is it?" I asked, my voice shaking. "It is $7,500, and there are only $43 left. Food, bills, household expenses," he said, as if talking to a child. "Do you think everything is free? Electricity, water, internet, it all costs money." "Mom, but not $7,500, I whispered. His face darkened. "There is also food to pay for, gas, clothes for interviews. Or do you want me to look for a job in rags?" He'd never spoken to me like this before. Cold, dismissive, almost cruel. Meanwhile, Amber's Instagram showed a different story. Photos of her at expensive restaurants in downtown Portland, designer handbags, weekend trips to the Oregon coast, to Seattle, to San Francisco for networking events. She posted about living her best life, about manifesting abundance, about building her empire. Every photo, every luxury item, every experience was paid for with my money while I grew weaker and hungrier. The networking events became frequent. Daniel and Amber would leave for days at a time, staying in boutique hotels, attending conferences and influencer meetups up and down the West Coast. "We are building connections," Daniel explained. "This is how you succeed in this industry." But the startup remained nothing more than a dream, a domain name that led to an empty website. My sister Grace tried to call multiple times from Seattle. Every time. Daniel answered my phone. "Mom is fine. Aunt Grace, just busy. I will have her call you back." But he never told me she had called, and when I asked about her, he said she was too busy with her own life to worry about us. One night, I woke up with my stomach twisting from hunger. I had not eaten anything all day except a small piece of bread in the morning. I crept to the kitchen, hoping to find something, anything. The refrigerator was nearly empty, just one container of yogurt. I reached for it with shaking hands. "What are you doing?" Amber's voice came from behind me, sharp and cold. I nearly dropped the container. "I am hungry," I whispered. She walked over and took the yogurt from my hands. "This is for Daniel's breakfast tomorrow. He needs protein for his interview." She put it back in the refrigerator and closed the door. "You already ate dinner." But I had not eaten dinner. They had ordered Thai food and had not offered me any. I went back to my small room and lay on the mattress. I did not even have sheets anymore. Those had been sold too, along with my pillows. I used a rolled-up towel under my head. In the darkness, I looked at my hands. They were skeletal, the bones visible through papery skin. I barely recognized them as my own. I caught my reflection in the small mirror the next morning. The woman staring back was a stranger. 94 pounds of bones and skin, hollow cheeks, eyes sunken deep into dark circles, hair thin and brittle. I looked like I was dying, and perhaps I was. The darkest thoughts began to creep in. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a useless old woman who did not understand how the modern world worked. Maybe I deserved this. Maybe it would be easier if I just stopped fighting, stopped hoping, stopped existing. I was giving up on myself, and no one was coming to save me, or so I thought. 2 months passed with no word from Grace. Daniel had blocked her number on my phone without telling me, but Grace was not someone who gave up easily. When she could not reach me, she grew suspicious. My younger sister had always been the fighter, the one who asked hard questions and demanded answers. She worked as a doctor at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, and she'd seen enough cases of elder abuse to recognize the warning signs. On the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, Grace made a decision. She bought a plane ticket from Boston to Portland without telling anyone. She was coming whether Daniel liked it or not. Meanwhile, I was supposed to host Thanksgiving dinner. It was tradition. Every year, I invited former colleagues from the accounting firm, neighbors, family friends. But this year, I had no money for food, no furniture for guests to sit on, no energy to cook. Daniel promised he would take care of everything, and Amber seemed excited about the content opportunity. She planned to photograph the dinner for her Instagram to show her followers her authentic family gathering. Grace arrived on Wednesday afternoon, a day early. Daniel answered the door, his face flashing with annoyance. "Aunt Grace, we were not expecting you until tomorrow. I wanted to help Maggie prepare," Grace said, pushing past him into the house. What she saw made her stop in her tracks. The living room was empty except for 2 folding chairs. The walls were bare. The beautiful craftsman home she remembered was now a hollow shell. "Where is Maggie?" Grace demanded, her voice sharp. "She is resting," Daniel said. "She has been a little tired lately." Grace did not wait for permission. She walked down the hallway, opening doors until she found me lying on a bare mattress in the smallest bedroom. When she saw me, her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, Maggie, what happened to you?" I tried to sit up, but I was too weak. Grace rushed to my side, taking my skeletal hand in hers. I felt her fingers tremble as she touched my arm, feeling nothing but bone beneath papery skin. Tears filled her eyes. "I am fine," I whispered, the automatic lie I had been telling myself for months. "You are not fine," Grace said, her voice breaking. "You are dying." Thanksgiving Day arrived. About 20 people came, former colleagues and friends who had not seen me in months. Daniel and Amber had ordered some basic takeout food and set it on a card table in the empty living room. There was nowhere to sit except on the floor or the 2 folding chairs. Guests looked around in confusion, whispering to each other. I was too weak to leave my room. Grace stayed with me, holding my hand, asking gentle questions about what had been happening. I told her everything: the money, the furniture, the isolation, the hunger. With each revelation, I watched her face grow harder, more determined. In the living room, Daniel and Amber were acting as if everything was normal, as if hosting Thanksgiving dinner on a card table in an empty house was perfectly reasonable. Amber was taking photos for Instagram, posing with the meager food, smiling her perfect smile. Then Grace stood up. She walked into the living room where everyone had gathered, and the room fell silent at the look on her face. "Daniel," she said quietly, "where is your mother's furniture? Where is her food? Where is her money?" Daniel's face flushed. "Aunt Grace, this is not the time or place. Answer the question." Amber stepped forward and placing herself between Grace and Daniel. "This is a family matter," she said with false sweetness. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No," Grace said. "I think everyone here should hear this. These are Maggie's friends, her colleagues. They have a right to know why she is starving in her own home." The room erupted in murmurs. People were looking at Daniel and Amber with growing suspicion. That is when Daniel made his fatal mistake. Perhaps it was pride. Perhaps it was defensiveness. Perhaps Amber had coached him to own the narrative. Whatever the reason, he crossed his arms, lifted his chin, and declared loudly for everyone to hear, "I gave all the money from my mother to my wife. Amber is building an empire with it. Mom's pension is an investment in our future." The silence that followed was absolute. 20 people stood frozen, staring at Daniel as if he had just confessed to murder. Amber, sensing she needed to control the situation, stepped forward with confidence. She held up her phone, showing her Instagram page with its carefully curated photos of luxury. "I am building a lifestyle brand," she said. "Maggie's money is being invested intelligently. She gave it to us voluntarily to manage. She understands that this is for the good of the family. Don't you, Mom?" Grace slowly set down her coat on the floor. There was nowhere else to put it. Then she walked very calmly toward Daniel, and when she spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet. "You took all of her money. You sold all of her belongings. You left her to starve in her own home, and you are proud of this?" Daniel's confidence wavered. "Aunt Grace, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Grace said. She pulled out her phone. "I am calling the police, and a lawyer, and Adult Protective Services. What you have done is called financial elder abuse, and it is a federal crime." Within an hour, my living room was filled with people who actually wanted to help me. Grace's lawyer friend arrived first, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia who specialized in elder law. Right behind her came a doctor from Providence Portland Medical Center, carrying a medical bag. Adult Protective Services sent a caseworker named James, who began documenting everything with a camera and notepad. Daniel's face had gone pale. Amber tried to leave, but Grace blocked the door. "No one is going anywhere until we get answers," Grace said firmly. The doctor examined me right there in my bedroom. She checked my blood pressure, my heart rate, my weight. Her face grew more concerned with each measurement. "Mrs. Chen, your blood pressure is dangerously high. You are severely malnourished and dehydrated. If you had gone another few weeks without intervention, you would likely have experienced organ failure." She looked at Grace. "She needs to go to the hospital immediately." "Not yet," I said, my voice weak but clear. "I need to hear everything first. I need to know the truth." Patricia, the lawyer, demanded to see all bank statements. Daniel refused at first, but Patricia pulled out her phone. "I can have the police here in 5 minutes to seize your phone and computer as evidence of financial exploitation, or you can cooperate now. Your choice." Daniel's hands shook as he opened his banking app. Patricia took screenshots of everything. Then she began reading the numbers aloud for everyone to hear. "In the past 18 months, $180,000 has been withdrawn from Margaret Chen's account. $95,000 was transferred directly to Amber Rodriguez's personal account, labeled as business investment. $36,000 was spent on a co-working space rental that Daniel used perhaps a dozen times. $28,000 was spent on travel, hotels, and conference fees for what Daniel called networking events. $21,000 was spent on clothing and accessories, all purchased by Amber. The room was silent except for Patricia's voice. Each number felt like a physical blow. Additionally, Patricia continued, I found applications for a home equity line of credit on this property, with Margaret Chen's signature. Mrs. Chen, did you sign these documents? I shook my head. I never saw those papers. That is forgery, Patricia said, looking directly at Daniel. You forged your mother's signature to attempt to extract $400,000 from her home. Daniel's face crumbled. I didn't. Amber said we needed more capital to save the business. I thought if we could just get the funding, we could pay Mom back everything. What business? Patricia asked coldly. She pulled up Daniel's supposed startup website on her phone. There is nothing here but a domain name and a placeholder page. No product, no employees, no actual business. Where did the money really go? Amber finally spoke, dropping her sweet influencer persona. Her voice was cold and sharp. This is ridiculous. Maggie gave us permission to use her money. She is old and confused. This is a family matter, not a legal issue. Patricia turned to Amber with a look of pure contempt. Mrs. Rodriguez, I have been documenting elder abuse cases for 20 years. What you and Daniel have done is textbook financial exploitation. The forged signatures alone are enough for criminal charges. Add in the theft, the neglect, the isolation, and you are looking at serious prison time. One of my former colleagues, a woman named Helen who had worked with me for 30 years, stood up. I tried to visit Maggie 3 months ago, she said, her voice shaking with anger. Amber answered the door and said Maggie was sleeping. She did not let me in. When I called later, my calls went to voicemail. I thought Maggie was avoiding me. Now I understand she was being held prisoner in her own home. Other guests began speaking up, sharing similar stories of blocked visits and unreturned calls. The evidence mounted with each testimony. Daniel collapsed into one of the folding chairs, his head in his hands. I am so sorry, Mom. I did not mean for it to go this far. Amber said it was just temporary, that we were building something real. I was stupid. I was weak. Please forgive me. But Amber showed no remorse. She stood with her arms crossed, her face a mask of cold calculation. You are all overreacting. Influencer businesses require investment. That is how the industry works. Maggie was too old-fashioned to understand modern entrepreneurship. Grace stepped close to Amber, her voice like ice. My sister is dying because of you. You stole her money, sold her belongings, and starved her while posting photos of your luxury lifestyle on Instagram, and you feel no shame at all. Amber's mask finally cracked. She gave us the money willingly. It is not our fault she is too weak to take care of herself. That was when I found my voice. Weak as I was, I spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. I gave you temporary access to help with expenses. I did not give you permission to steal everything I had. I did not give you permission to forge my signature. I did not give you permission to leave me to starve. You are a thief. Amber. And Daniel. You let her do this to your own mother. The ambulance arrived within 20 minutes. Paramedics lifted me onto a stretcher, and I felt Grace's hand holding mine as they carried me out of the house I had lived in for 30 years. As we passed through the empty living room, I saw the faces of my friends and former colleagues, many of them crying. At Providence Portland Medical Center, I was admitted directly to the intensive care unit. The doctors ran tests and started intravenous fluids immediately. My kidneys showed signs of damage from prolonged dehydration. I had severe anemia and critical vitamin deficiencies. The attending physician, a kind man in his 50s, told Grace and me the truth I already knew. Mrs. Chen, you arrived just in time. 1 or 2 more weeks in those conditions, and you would have suffered multi-organ failure. You were very close to death. Grace stayed with me every day. She took a leave of absence from her hospital in Boston and barely left my bedside. She brought flowers, read to me, held my hand when nightmares woke me in the middle of the night. Meanwhile, Patricia filed formal complaints with the district attorney's office: financial elder abuse, forgery, theft by deception. The prosecutor reviewed the evidence and offered Daniel and Amber a choice: sign an agreement to repay the full $180,000 over 7 years with monthly payments of $2,143, or face criminal trial with potential prison sentences of up to 10 years. Amber's response was immediate. She filed for divorce within 48 hours. I am not going down for this, she told Daniel coldly. You were the one who had access to her accounts. You forged the signatures. This is all on you. She hired her own lawyer and began cooperating with prosecutors, throwing Daniel under the bus to save herself. Daniel was left alone, abandoned by the woman he had sacrificed everything for. He tried to visit me in the hospital twice. Both times, I refused to see him. On the 3rd attempt, Grace finally let him into my room, but only because I asked her to. I needed to say what I had to say. Daniel looked broken. He had aged years in just days. His eyes were red from crying, his clothes wrinkled, his hair unwashed. He fell to his knees beside my hospital bed. Mom, please, I'm so sorry. I was manipulated. I was weak. I lost my way. Please give me another chance. I can change. I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you. I looked at my son for a long moment. I saw the broken man in front of me, but I also saw the little boy who had once promised to take care of me. I felt the weight of 67 years of putting everyone else first, of sacrificing my own needs, my own happiness, my own safety for the sake of others. And I made the hardest decision of my life. No, I said, my voice firm despite my weakness. I will not give you another chance. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. Mom, please. For 67 years, I put everyone before myself. I continued. Your father, you, my patients, my colleagues, everyone. And when I needed someone to put me first, when I needed someone to protect me, you chose money. You chose a woman who cared nothing for you. You chose your comfort over my life. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but my voice remained steady. I love you, Daniel. I will always love you. But I love myself too. And for the first time in my life, I am going to choose me. Daniel sobbed, reaching for my hand, but I pulled it away. You will sign the repayment agreement. You will pay back every penny you stole. And after that, I do not want to see you until you have proven, through years of consistent action, that you have truly changed, not words, not promises, actions. Grace escorted Daniel out of the room, through the door. I could hear his broken sobs echoing down the hospital corridor. My heart ached, but I did not call him back. I had broken enough already. 2 days later, Daniel signed the agreement. 7 years of payments, $2,143 every month. If he missed even one payment, criminal prosecution would proceed immediately. I spent 12 days in the hospital. When I was finally discharged, I had gained 9 pounds and my vital signs had stabilized. Grace took me to a hotel rather than back to my house. You are never going back there, she said firmly. That house is full of ghosts now. You are coming to live with me. I decided to sell the Portland house. Too many ghosts lived in those rooms now. Too many memories had been tainted. Patricia helped me list it, and within 3 weeks, we had an offer for $1.8 million. After 30 years, the house that David and I had bought together would belong to someone else. I packed only what mattered: photographs of David, a few items from Daniel's innocent childhood, my nursing certificates, and letters from grateful colleagues. Grace found me a beautiful apartment in Boston near Massachusetts General Hospital where she worked. It had large windows overlooking the Charles River and enough space for me to start fresh. She helped me decorate, choosing furniture that was comfortable and new, with no painful associations. Recovery was slow but steady. I worked with a physical therapist to regain my strength. A nutritionist designed a meal plan to help me gain weight safely. Week by week, pound by pound, I climbed back from the edge of death. 94 pounds became 100, then 110, then 118. My hair grew back thicker. The dark circles under my eyes faded. I began to look like myself again, but the physical healing was only part of the journey. Grace insisted I see a therapist who specialized in trauma and family abuse. The sessions were painful, forcing me to confront how I had enabled my own victimization, how my desperate need to be needed had made me vulnerable to manipulation. What you experienced was financial abuse and severe neglect, my therapist explained. It was not your fault. You were the victim, not the person responsible. Those words freed something inside me that had been locked away for too long. I joined a support group for elder abuse survivors. Hearing other people's stories, realizing I was not alone, gave me strength I did not know I had. I began sharing my own story at community centers and senior organizations, hoping to help others recognize the warning signs I had missed. Slowly, I built a new life. I joined a book club. I took a Tai Chi class. I volunteered at a community kitchen. I made new friends who knew nothing about my past except what I chose to share. For the first time in years, I felt like Margaret Chen again, not just Daniel's mother or David's widow, but myself. 1 year after that terrible Thanksgiving, Grace hosted dinner at her home in Boston. Around the table sat my new friends, Grace's colleagues, and people who genuinely cared about me. We shared food and laughter and gratitude. I looked around at these faces and felt something I had not felt in so long. I felt blessed. That same week, a letter arrived from Daniel. He had completed 1 year of intensive therapy. He had divorced Amber and was working a regular job as a software developer. He had made every single payment on time, $2,143 each month. $25,716 paid. $154,284 remaining. His letter was different from the desperate pleas he had sent before. This one was thoughtful, honest, taking full responsibility without excuses. He wrote about the work he was doing to understand how he had been manipulated and how he had become an abuser himself. He asked for nothing except the chance to prove, through years of consistent action, that he could change. I read the letter 3 times. I was not ready to see him yet. Perhaps I would never be ready. But I kept the letter, and I did not throw it away. That felt like enough for now. On a crisp autumn morning, I sat on my apartment balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise paint the Charles River in shades of gold and pink. Grace joined me with her own coffee, sitting in comfortable silence beside me. "What are you thinking about, sis?" she finally asked. I smiled, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face. I'm thinking about how lucky I am to be alive, how grateful I am for you, how beautiful the future looks. Grace squeezed my hand. "And I am grateful you survived, that you are so strong." I thought about everything I had lost: money, my home, my relationship with my son, the innocence of believing that family love was unconditional. But I had gained something far more valuable. I had found myself. I had discovered that I deserved respect, dignity, and love. I had learned that I did not have to accept abuse from anyone, not even my own blood. The morning breeze touched my face gently, and I closed my eyes, breathing deeply. For the first time in over a year, I felt something I had almost forgotten existed. I felt free, completely, wonderfully, beautifully free. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There is so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.